then, welcome back, SADDOs, to another episode of the Sitcom Archive Deep Dive Overdrive with me, Eggs Benedict.
And me, Alison Barton Simmons.
Hello, El.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm alright, I think.
Good.
We're on to the second episode of this classic but lesser seen John Sullivan 1980 sitcom, Dear John. If you missed last week's episode 1, it's out there, go listen to it. This week's episode, do you know what it's called, Al?
I do. It's In the Club, and it was first broadcast on the BBC on the 24th of February 1986.
We haven't been looking at viewing figures, have we? Did you happen to write it down?
No, I tried to look at, it's not as easily accessible to find, I don't think, as, for example, The Good Life was. It seemed to be there when I researched it. It seemed to be there every time I looked at how when they were first on TV and how many viewers they got. So I don't know. I'd be quite interested to find out.
I don't know how they calculate TV viewers, but I've always been very suspicious of it anyway, haven't you?
It just seems like quite a random number. I don't know. How did they do it? What is the technique for finding out viewing figures?
Surely they take a straw poll, and then just multiply it. And then even then, how do you know how many people are gathered around the box?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Seems very woolly.
Anyway, regardless of how many people watched it originally, it's a great episode, and you will enjoy it. As we say every week. So this week, before we get stuck in, I thought although admittedly this is a bit maudlin, I thought we'd just start off by discussing my theory.
Oh.
You know the curse of Superman?
Yeah.
That befell lots of people who were in Superman.
Yeah.
George Reeves, Christopher Reeve, Margot Kidder, blah blah blah. Although I did read actually that someone who was in Smallville, who was a sex trafficker.
Yeah. Alison Mack.
Yeah, someone tried to attribute the curse to her. I think
no, she's just a bad person.
That's just being a wrong un.
Yeah, she's just a dirty pedo, surely.
Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't stand up in court, would it? That's
no.
the curse.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I have a theory that Dear John is similarly cursed.
Oh, okay.
But only affecting the male participants of the show.
Right.
Because as we discussed last week, Ralph Bates died young, didn't he? 1991 of pancreatic cancer. But then when you look through, they all died young, the fellas. We got Peter Blake.
Yeah.
Played Kirk. He died in 69, No. He died in 2018, age 69, not the other way around.
God, that could have gone so much worse.
Yeah. If he died age 2018, that's a bloody good innings. Yes, but Peter Blake, I don't know what he died of. I find that really frustrating. To you these days? They don't say what people died of. I know it's none of my business, but
is it because usually there's some story attached to it?
Well, I just want to know. I just want to know what got everyone. I'm a nosy bastard. Yeah. If someone's dead, I want to know how they died. I don't want a graphic picture, but just like a little line that says, cancer, died from sleep or something. I just want to know.
Do you not think, though, if it doesn't say and it's not made clear that it's something, there's nothing said, the less said makes me more interested, like you say.
Yeah. But similarly, Peter Denyer, who played Ralph, he died only age 62.
Oh, gosh, they were all young then, weren't they?
Yeah. And again, that was 2009, so that was a while ago. But no cause of death listed anywhere. Actually, there was one website that seems to have just got this...
Oh my God.
But I was just trying to find it, and it said, died of a non-communicable disease. But then I realised afterwards that every single person they didn't know the cause of death on this website, they attributed to a non-communicable disease.
Okay, right. Oh.
So anyway, Peter Blake, Peter Denyer, Ralph Bates, all died, all the main cast, but even Terence Edmond, who played Ken, who is John's colleague at the school who we haven't met yet, he died age 69 also in 2009 of bronchiectasis.
Blimey, do you think there is like a Dear John curse then? Because that's...
Well, yeah, I've not even finished.
That's a high percentage already.
We got the writer, John Sullivan, who died 64. I thought he was older, but he was 64 of viral pneumonia 10 years ago. He still had years left in him to churn out classics, or perhaps just Boise in Shropshire. What was it called? The Green Grass.
Green Grass, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't so good. And then even, do you remember in Series 2 of Dear John, which again we haven't got to, Kevin Lloyd was a guest, the guy who played Tosh in The Bill.
Right.
He was a recurring guest in Series 2. He died aged just 49. Complications due to alcoholism.
God, that's young, isn't it?
Yeah. There was a lot of fuss about that at the time, as I remember. So yeah, but we should point out for balance that Belinda Lang, Rachel Bell, Lucinda Curtis, who played Sylvia.
Yep.
Jean Chalice, who's 83 now, and Wendy Allnut, who played John's wife Wendy. They're all alive and well, as far as we know.
Well, that's good news. But blimey, that's quite shocking, really. That
just affecting the men.
The entire cast of Dear John wiped out in the prime.
Irene Prado, who played Mrs Lamenski, is dead, but to be fair, she'd be 110 if she was alive.
So that was expected, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, Ralph Bates' son's still alive. He's our age.
Toby.
Which is good. Yeah, we don't want to put the kiss of death on the guy who played Toby.
No.
I'm sure he's got a long and healthy life ahead of him.
Yes.
Christ. So we're not doing a bloody rip to him next week. We're talking about Betty White in our Christmas special, weren't we?
We did talk about Betty White, yes. Do you remember at the end of The Good Life how we watched the final episode, which was like a royal command performance because the Queen wanted another episode of the series making? So they did it in front of the live
I do remember that vividly because you bring it up every week, don't you?
Do you remember that? Well, I discovered this week, and I don't know if this is like big news that everybody knows, but apparently the Queen Mother was a big fan of the Golden Girls. We were just talking then about Betty White, and the cast were asked to recreate scenes from the Golden Girls series live at the London Palladium, apparently.
When was this?
This is in 1988, this was.
Yeah.
So probably at the height of the Golden Girls when it was on TV. And so apparently any royal family member could just command that...
Really?
To get the band back together and
well, did they?
Put on
did
a
they
performance.
do it?
Yeah. The cast appeared at the 1988 Royal Variety Performance.
Yeah.
I know.
So if bloody Prince Charles was a really big fan of Round the Elephant and Up the Castle or whatever it was called by Jim Davidson, he could have it all Anita
back.
Dobson in. Christ. Yeah.
Yeah, apparently they can just...
Prince Andrew was a big fan of Confessions of a Window Cleaner series. That sounds a bit more believable, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Well, best leave that there. Okay, well, as always, we'll be sharing links via our social media, so you can watch this episode of Dear John online before listening to us, if you so wish. Or you can just listen to us talk about it. It really matters not a jot to us, does it?
No, just enjoy it.
You do you.
Enjoy it or don't.
Should we get stuck in then?
Let's do that.
Series 1, Episode 2, In the Club.
Dear John, Dear John, by the time you read these lines, I'll be gone. Life goes on, right or wrong. Now it's all been said and done, dear John. Seems we've sung love's last song, dear John.
So this one opens with John returning home to his grim little bedsit, doesn't it?
Feels very grimy and sad.
I felt for him, yeah. And he immediately tries to engage with like one of his neighbours, a young woman, in the conversation of this very dirty-looking hallway, and she just blanks him.
Yeah. I feel that John, in this episode, they do set him up to be quite pathetic. He's quite a pathetic character, I think, in this episode.
Very sad sack, isn't he? And this woman ignores him, but then another fella walks past and he's like, oh, watch your old pal.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't be so desperate, John. You know?
This guy, I don't know, I assume that he must know him because he called him Steve old pal. And it did make me laugh that he said watcher, which is like the 80s sort of London-centric greeting that they all used if you live within like a mile radius of Grange Hill.
Further than that, sure.
Watch
I'm
out.
sure they said it in Walford as well.
Oi, oi. Yeah, probably.
And Jim Davidson probably said it in
Yes.
Elephant and Castle, or whatever it's called. Yeah, but he gets blown off again, doesn't he? By Steve. He's just not really interested. He's not rude to. Well, I suppose he is a bit rude to him, but he's just like, no, you're all right.
Yeah.
'Cause he wants to go for a pint with him, but no, Steve's not interested. And at this point, John does something here that he does a lot and doesn't always work for me, which is that he starts talking to himself.
Yes.
Well, sometimes it's in a monologue, and it's like that dreamy voice to let you know it's his thoughts. And I think that's fine, but when he just starts talking to himself in a room, it's a little bit odd.
Yeah.
But Mrs Lamenski is who we presume is his landlady, or perhaps another neighbour.
I thought she was his landlady, but I've read somewhere else that she's a neighbour, so she's just another person that lives in the grimy bedsit.
Yeah, another inhabitant of Sad Sack House.
Mm.
Yeah. So she's loitering in the hall because she's a bit of a nosy bitch.
She's always there, isn't she? She's always bloody loitering, coming through doorways and peeping and
or listening through the wall. But
yes.
She spots him talking to himself, and she calls him a loony, which is like a catchphrase, isn't it?
She really does. She throws all this at John. Either he's a loony. What else does she call him? You're a madman.
Crazy person. Crazy person. Yeah, I like Mrs. Lamenski. She makes me laugh. So John's had a letter, which he takes into his little miserable kind of bedsit with him.
Yeah, and sniffs.
And sniffs it, and he says, "Oh, rotten flesh must be from her." Which is very cutting. And then he reads it aloud to himself.
Yeah.
It's a letter from Wendy, his wife. She's not happy because she couldn't cash his cheque because he misspelled her name, which is Fitch. It's obvious. Draw your own conclusion joke.
Yes.
And also sent her a Venus flytrap for her birthday.
I think he's quite bitter.
Do you think he might be? But she ends the letter by saying that she's instructed his solicitors to apply for an increase in maintenance payments. So while John's reading this out loud, he's quite jovial until he gets to that point. Because he's enjoying winding her up, and then he thinks, oh shit, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And this is a recurring thing, isn't it, really? We find out as the series goes on. Wendy's a leech. And despite her new fella living with her, and he doesn't pay out, so she's constantly on the sort of scrounge from John for more money.
So John really is paying for his ex-wife and her lover to live in his old house.
Yeah, exactly. And he's paying for everything, it seems. And he gets on the phone to Wendy because he actually says he gets himself psyched up to tell her what he thinks.
Yeah.
He says he's going to go there, and he says he's going to phone her. And there's this sort of communal phone in the dingy little hallway, isn't there? He's like, right, I'm going to ring her. And then as soon as he gets through, he unloads.
Oh, I'd love to see her face when I tell her they found my body. Hello, it's me. I don't know what the hell you think you're playing at, but can't you understand I have nothing left? And the reason I have nothing left is because you've got it all. The house, the car, nearly 2/3 of my meagre salary. Now, you can apply to any court you wish, but I'm telling you here and now, you will not get another penny out of me. Do you understand that, you unscrupulous, money-grabbing, gold-digging cow? What? I'm sorry. Extension 179, please.
But it turns out it's a random admin person who's answered the phone.
Yes.
What does he say? What does he call this random admin person?
Unscrupulous, money-grabbing, gold-digging cow. Which I thought was ace.
But then he says, I'm very sorry, can you put me through to extension 236, please?
Yeah. But then he does the head bang again. He bangs his head again. 3
times against the wall, and of course, who's watching from her doorway? But Mrs. Lamenski.
Crazy person.
You're a crazy person. And when he finally speaks to Wendy, he's much more obsequious and sort of, he's trying to charm her into not basically ruining him financially, rather than calling her a money-grabbing, gold-digging cow.
Yeah.
He's calling her darling and sweetheart, in fact, isn't he?
He is. He sort of slaps it all on, doesn't he? All the sweet talk in order to get her to call the solicitors off.
Which you can understand, but it just makes it look very sort of pathetic because she's taking a piss.
Yeah.
Yeah, John cries poverty, and he just basically asks nicely, and Wendy agrees to call the solicitors off. But then this phone conversation ends with him telling Wendy that he's going to the one-to-one club, and she just laughs down the phone at him and then hangs up on him.
I don't know why he bothered telling her. I think that's an odd thing to do. I don't know. It just felt like, why would you tell her?
Well, he was a bit reticent to talk about it, but she was assuming he was going clubbing, and he probably didn't want her to think he was spending money he didn't have.
Right. So it's just
Do you know
like,
what I mean?
I'm going to a divorced person's club.
Yeah, but she's a proper cow. She just laughing at him and everything. Really horrible.
Yeah.
We do meet her in later episodes, don't we?
Yeah.
And I don't like her anymore when she's
No,
in it in person.
In person, no.
Which probably means she's playing the role well, I guess.
Yep.
So we cut to the one-to-one club, and we see Louise is putting up a poster for the forthcoming disco, and she's explaining that as well as these Friday night members that we see every week in Dear John, there's also the Monday night people and the Wednesday night people, and that they all get together periodically for the disco or the social events, and you'll enjoy it.
You will enjoy it. Yeah.
I love Louise. She's great.
She is great.
Ralph arrives. He's complaining about his sprockets on his motorcycle combination, followed by Kate and then Mrs. Arnott.
Yes.
And Kate wonders out loud if that imbecile will be there again. And Louise shushes him, thinking she's referring to Ralph.
Oh, Louise isn't expecting Kirk to turn up though. She said, "Yeah, we always get the likes of Kirk coming, and they never come again."
Because they're expecting to see really desperate women, and then she sort of looks around the room and thinks, "Oh shit."
Yeah.
I think she says desperate sexually repressed women, and of course, we don't know at this point about Kate, but
No.
that's the reveal in this episode, isn't it? That she's a bit sexually repressed.
Mm.
But Kirk, unfortunately for everyone, does arrive. Good for us, though.
Yes.
Kirk arrives, he says hi to everyone.
He says, "Hey gang, hey gang." Oh, second-hand embarrassment. Hey gang.
Hey guy, Ralphie.
Oh.
Louise says, let's start the meeting, but Kirk says, hey Louise, the fat woman ain't here. Because Mrs. Arnott was kind of just out of shot and then coming in behind him.
Yes.
Ralph's pointing out Mrs. Arnott, and he just turns around and says, I do apologise. The fat woman is here.
The fat woman is here. He's such a dick, isn't he? Oh, no.
He does it with such a cheeky smile.
He does.
So Louise is really seeking to clarify the purpose of the one-to-one club, isn't she, here?
Yes.
She says it's not just a social club, it's an encounter group, and she asks them what they understand by that.
Just it's such an open question, and Ralph just says, well, it's where you encounter people, which is very true.
It is, but then Louise volunteers a rather more sort of convoluted psychobabble type definition.
She does.
Well, now, the club is not here just to organise all the fun events and crazy evenings you see on the board. No. It is also an encounter group, yeah? Now, what do you understand by the term encounter group? Yes, Rafe.
Well, an encounter group means we encounter things.
Good guess, Rafe. What kind of things?
People.
It's a little more than that. I think what you're trying to say, Rafe, is that we are a symposium idea and formulae seeking greater emotional awareness within the framework of viable spatial patterns by means of a sympathetic dialogue based on interactive cooperation and mutual trust, yeah?
No.
And then she follows that up by sort of trying a relaxation / hypnosis script on them all.
Yeah.
As someone who's done hypnosis training, was far too brief to have had any effects, but you can't do a 10-minute induction in a sitcom, can you?
No.
Yeah, she reads it all out and she's trying to get everyone to relax, but it seems to have the opposite effect on Ralph and John. John goes stiff as a board, doesn't he?
Yeah, I don't know what he's doing. And the way that he's sat, it's really weird.
She's walking around the room, talking all gently, and then she says, now that we're all nice and relaxed, let's take as our theme suicidal tendencies.
Yeah, just slip that straight in there.
So again, at this point, it cuts to some time later, and we can see that they've been at it in terms of like their encounter group conversation and talking about things.
Yes.
Which I think is a good idea for this one-to-one club. More than just a social club, they can talk about their histories and work through things. But unfortunately, the personnel involved John seems like he's got a decent handle on things. I would back John as a friend to sort of guide me through troubled waters a little bit, wouldn't you?
I think so, yeah. I think the way that he approaches things and the way that he speaks, I think John would be someone that you'd chat with and you'd find interesting, and that would find you interesting as well. And I thought this last week when he sat right at the very, very beginning of the first episode, when he sat outside the pub, and that when Roger turns up, and
probably dead.
I think he said probably dead. He asks John if he's still working with them vandals, and he means the kids at the school.
Yeah.
And John quite eloquently describes that his job isn't about working with like hoodlums, it's about helping young people and helping education. And I think John would be on our wavelength. I think he would be someone that you would engage in conversation quite easily.
Well, to invoke one of our recurring phrases from series 1 of this podcast, he's a good egg, isn't he? Like Jerry.
He is a good egg. I think he is a good egg. Yes. Yep. I think he is, and I don't think I appreciated that when I wasn't. As an adult now watching it, I can appreciate how much of a good egg John is.
If you were a divorced lady of the age that you are now, and you were down the one-to-one club, he'd be the pick, wouldn't he?
He would. I don't know if I wouldn't fancy him, but I think...
Yeah, but, it's slim pickings, isn't it?
It is slim pickings. It's very slim pickings. But I think as characters, yeah, you would be drawn to John as the most normal out of the small handful of people.
Yeah. For someone who's portrayed as a sad sack, he's actually got a little bit of charisma to him when he gets going.
I think he has. Yes.
Are we John apologists? No, we're John defenders, aren't we? Yeah.
Yes.
We like John.
Yeah.
Tiger.
Ralph has been discussing his wife for some time, clearly, to Kirk's frustration at this point, hasn't he? He says, Kirk says to him, it's a well-known fact that chicks from the Eastern Bloc are ugly.
It's a sweeping generalisation, that, isn't it, Kirk?
And he says, do you know what they call pretty girls in Poland? Tourists.
That's mean. That's so mean, isn't it? I did like in this little scene when Kirk is describing what they used to call him in the Marines, and Kate jumps in before he has a chance to answer and says, dickhead.
Yeah.
Which was brilliant because there was no explanation, there was nothing else around it, there was no lead up to it. It was the fact that she just comes out with dickhead, and I thought that is brilliant. It was perfectly timed. And
it's a shock value as well, you weren't expecting it, especially in the 80s. Did you hear the woman yelp?
There was some random woman in the audience that laughed.
Yeah, she sort of yelped at it.
Yeah, hysterically. I just thought it was perfect timing and just the perfect word.
She doesn't beat around the bush with Kirk though, does she? She just shows utter contempt and disdain for everything he says.
She doesn't like him. Yeah.
But Kirk's just giving it his usual bullshit at this point, telling bullshit stories.
Yeah.
Getting on everyone's nerves. But then Ralph starts going on about what's worrying him, which is plants, and something he'd read about their ability to talk to each other and communicate with each other. And then he asks Kate if she's ever talked to plants. And Kate replies, well, I've exchanged a few words with that cabbage over there. It's like she can't get off the fact that he's there. I don't even know why she goes, because he repels her so much. Why does she even go?
I did like the fact as well that Ralph confessed that he worries that the plants are talking about him as well. He really has got very, very low, but such low self-esteem that he thinks that the plants that are in his company would be talking about him. Poor Ralph.
Yeah, and his parents even took him to the doctor, he says. And Kirk says, well, it's better than taking you to see the Triffids.
See the Triffids!
Some great lines in this, just back and forth.
There is, absolutely.
Louise is pushing. She's now urging Kate, isn't she, to tell them more about herself, any sexual problems.
Yes.
And it comes to light that she's been divorced, not once, not twice, but 3 times.
Yeah. She puts it down to a run of bad luck as well. She says that it was just pure bad luck.
Yeah. John asks if it was the same problem each time, and she kind of bites his head off. And she obviously not very comfortable talking about it, and she says sometimes she gets very depressed, at which point Mrs Arnott stands up. It makes me laugh the way she always she did stand up, didn't she, when she said this?
She did stand up, yeah.
She always stands up when she talks, and she says when she gets depressed she likes to eat a Mars bar. And they all just look at her. And then she says, one day she ate 11. Gets a big laugh. But, I mean, it is funny, but that is exactly how my depression works, to be honest.
I think it's it's not unusual, that, is it? But it did sound quite funny when she said it. The fact that she was stood up as well.
Yeah, her delivery. But I mean, it's pretty much, if I get really down, I mean, that's my relationship with food, I'll just go and binge like a whole pack, family-sized pack of...
Yeah.
I'm like Alan Partridge driving to bloody Dundee, eating Toblerone barefoot. It's a real thing. Louise looks like she's going to be quite sympathetic to Mrs Arnott, doesn't she? And she says that she's an emotional eater and she probably needs to form a strong and loving relationship, but then ruins it by suggesting the other alternative, which is to have her jaws wired shut.
Oh.
Just when you this is the thing, the duality with Louise. She's got all this sort of like psychobabble and a little bit of understanding, but she's also completely tactless, almost to Kirk's level at times. Yeah.
Yes, she is.
So Kirk starts telling a story at this point. He points out his medallion and he says, have you seen this? And Louise says, I've never noticed it before. It's a dinky little thing. Massive medallion he's wearing around his open shirt.
Yes.
And Kirk's story is that a girl in San Francisco gave him this cross as something to remember her by. And her words were, I'd like you to have this as something to remember me by. But she was a nun, and in the end she had to choose between Jesus and him, and the big guy won.
He does spin this tale, doesn't he? He spins this tale, but he says that she was a nun, but he called her Candy.
Yeah, and whenever he tells a tale, he kind of like prowls the room, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
You can tell it's almost like part of his idiosyncrasy, part of his trope. That he's when he tells one of his bullshit stories, he's working the room, and it is a ludicrous story, but it moves Mrs Arnott to tears, doesn't it?
It does. She's crying. I know, bless her.
So, in amidst all of this, I think John's had enough today, hasn't he? It's been a shit day for John.
Yeah.
When he's asked by Louise about his lowest point, he says, right now.
Yeah. At least he's honest.
Yeah, he just explodes and he says, if it isn't bad enough that his ex-wife thinks she's a leech, he's had to listen to the parable of the go-go nun, a fully grown man with Bill and Ben syndrome, and then, very cruelly, a woman who's had 3 divorces but doesn't think she has a problem.
Yeah, that's mean. A bit mean, isn't it?
Just went too far there, didn't he?
Yeah.
We're being apologists for John again, but yeah. Kate's, she explodes, doesn't she? And she says, would you go around broadcasting that you'd had 3 marriages end because you're frigid?
Oh.
The room is shocked, although Louise...
Oh, she loves it!
She's titillated, doesn't she? She absolutely loves it. And she very dramatically asks whether you ever went to see a marriage guidance counsellor.
But Kate's... Yeah, they did. But apparently Kate's second husband ran off with her.
Yeah.
So she couldn't even do that.
Yeah. This is like the quick fire jokes that John Sullivan does so well, you know, when...
Yeah.
In the stories that they tell. You know, it rings a bell from Citizen Smith and Only Fools and Horses as well, like triggers stories that there's always like this extra punchline that you don't expect.
It felt very Only Fools and Horses, I thought, this scene.
Mm.
It felt reminiscent. It felt very familiar of those the jokes and the timing and the words that you'd use. I think it felt like...
You've got to remember as well, I suppose, that Fools and Horses was an established show at this point. It had been running for 5 years. So this was like a side project. So you're going to see that writing style in it, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, Louise declares the evening a success and they all retire to the pub at this point, don't they?
Yeah.
Kate's clearly very upset, having announced to the group that she's frigid, which is probably her worst mistake that she makes in this entire series, really.
Yeah. I think mentioning that means that she's always going to get prowled upon.
Frigid isn't a word you even hear these days, is it? Which is probably a good thing.
No. It feels like a high school word, that.
Mm.
It doesn't feel like it's in, like, sort of common usage. It's not a word that you...
I think it might have even been a high school word because of Dear John, because of our age, you know.
Do you think?
I think so. I only knew what it meant because of Dear John. Yeah.
I think now it's like, it's not really... You wouldn't really say that about someone, would you? You wouldn't... I don't think it's not like an acceptable word to use about someone, I don't think.
No, just as the opposite is, you know, like slut-shaming type things are obviously quite rightly frowned upon. And
yeah, it's part of that sort of circle of words that now you don't get involved in.
Hashtag different times.
Indeed.
Over at the pub, John is coming back from the bar with the drinks order. He's got a half a Guinness for Louise and a double gin for Kate, which she neck's neat, because she's obviously very stressed.
Yeah.
And a margarita for Mrs Arnott.
Oh, I love that. I love that Mrs Arnott wants a margarita.
Yeah, she got exotic tastes.
Yeah.
In the Dog and Duck. And Louise has been a real, positively ghoulish at this point, isn't she? Pestering Kate.
Yeah. Pushy.
Yeah, she's saying, did they force themselves onto you? And was there physical pain? It's like quite uncomfortable it's getting towards, isn't it? What a weirdo.
It makes you wonder why she's in charge of this group. Does she just want titillating?
Yeah, it's all the psychosexual stuff. Just gets her off, I think. But meanwhile, over at the bar, Kirk is bullshitting the barmaid and trying to... I mean, it isn't working, but he's like friends of mine that I've known who I won't name, who they're just never put off. They're never shamed.
Yeah.
They're just, like 10 to 2, as I used to call them, because in the nightclub at 10 to 2, they crack onto some girl and they get knocked back and literally just pirouette and try and see who's behind and then...
Just try someone else.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what Kirk's like. He just doesn't care, does he? Being dismissed by this barmaid doesn't put him off dispensing advice to John and Ralph how they can be more successful with the women.
Yeah. He
labels them both boring, doesn't he?
I find the character in this scene of Kirk is quite repulsive, isn't he? That, like, just not taking no for an answer and not being... no humility to think, oh well, you know what? I'm just gonna leave it. I'm just gonna go. What do I know? What do I know about all this? And he's there, sort of like you say, just giving it out to everybody else.
Yeah.
How to be a success with the ladies.
Judging everyone.
Yeah.
This is genius casting though, because he would have been obnoxious if he wasn't Peter Blake's smile. I mean, he is obnoxious, but there's still something that just makes you like him as a character somehow.
I think so. Yeah, you are drawn to it. I think as a kid. Like sort of pre-pubescent me thought he was quite fit. I thought Kirk was quite fit.
Yeah, well, he was.
Yeah, and well, I don't know, the clothes I found quite repulsive, despite the fact that Saturday Night Fever is my favourite film of all time. The outfit is like makes me go, ugh, don't like that. But as a he's a really good looking guy. What
gets me though is that look was seen as like the height of heterosexuality.
Yeah, that was like man, weren't it? That was man, that outfit.
Yeah, lots of rumours about John Travolta's sexuality, which we won't indulge, but yeah. I would say the one thing he doesn't look in those movies is heterosexual in hindsight.
No, it's a very homoerotic film, I think.
I mean, it's similar in the 80s, though. I mean, this look is a 70s look in an 80s sitcom, but when you think of, like, George Michael, in music videos, like Faith shaking his ass and that.
Yeah, not the traditional man sort of image that you can sort of, like, conjure up in your mind.
Yeah, it was just really, really camp in hindsight, but it was somehow seen as... I don't think it was really crossing people's minds. But anyway, there you go.
No. Yeah.
Kirk is... encouraging both John and Ralph to tell lies to make themselves sound more interesting to women. Ralph's not sure quite how to do this, is he? And Kirk says, well, if you were to tell a chick that you lost an umbrella on a bus, that would make your past more interesting. And Ralph says, I did lose an umbrella on a bus. I lost 2.
I like the story about the umbrella losing on the bus.
Yeah, but Kirk's saying that you need to jazz it up. Don't just say that you never got them back. You need to make it more exciting. And I think he's thinking like a story of how maybe someone found the umbrella and brought it back to him and they started a relationship. Yeah. But instead, Ralph's thinking more in terms of the forms he had to fill in to get the umbrella back.
And the brand of umbrella that he lost. And
yeah.
Yeah.
John, for his part, he says he can't tell lies, so thanks but no thanks for the advice. But then he immediately follows it up by telling a lie to Kirk about what he's doing that night, because Kirk wants to go clubbing with him.
He just gets himself into sort of like deep water here that he can't get out of by doing exactly that, by telling a lie when he didn't need to.
Well, I suppose it's a white lie because he didn't want to hurt Kirk's feelings. And Kirk literally flat out asked him, "What, do you not like me?"
Yeah.
And he thinks, oh, now I'll have to make it. So he's saying that he's going to see a woman. And Kirk says, is she black? I love blackbirds. Yeah. And John says, well, I'll buy you a crow for Christmas.
Yeah. Hashtag different times.
But then it transpires, doesn't it, that the rest of the one-to-one members are actually going with Kirk to this club for some bizarre reason.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine this. It seemed like the last thing that they'd all be doing together, going off to a nightclub. But then again, they've all had a drink, so, you know.
That's true. I think Louise probably wants to hear more about Kate's problems.
She's probably like been force-feeding her gin so that she'll tell her more about sexual escapades.
And Kate actually explains to John why she's going, which I think is a useful scene to make it more believable. She says it's basically to stave off the loneliness of going back to a flat alone, you know, for somewhere to go and be around people.
Yeah.
But John's sort of thinking, oh shit, I wouldn't mind being in on this actually, at this point, having made his excuse, given that everyone else is going. Perhaps he fancies Mrs Arnott or something.
Perhaps he does.
But he says, well, I'll come along, I'll be all right, I'll blow off this lady I'm seeing. And Kate's quite appalled that he's gonna blow off his date with this fictional girl without even phoning to tell her.
Yeah, that he's quite willing to just let someone down.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what Kate was expecting. I think Kate was sort of thinking, oh, he's a good guy, he's a nice person. Yeah,
it's not really representative of the John that comes across.
No.
Because it isn't really what he'd do, of course. So that then he has to go through the drama, the cringe drama of faking a phone call.
I could see this coming, and I knew who he was ringing and who was going to pick up.
Yeah.
You could see it coming a mile off, couldn't you?
He does quite a good job of pretending to talk to someone. I think it is quite convincing.
Yeah.
But this person, he's saying, oh, I'm really sorry, darling, I can't come. It turns out to be Mrs Lamenski, of course.
It does indeed. Of course it does.
On the communal phone. Why you phone me like this, you mad person?
You are nutcase.
You belong in a straitjacket, you loony man. And then, just before it ends, we find out that, of course, Kirk's club is running a wet t-shirt contest.
Of course it is.
Of course it is. It's not going to be a normal place, is it? Full of fully functional, normal human beings. If Kirk frequents it. And that's the end of the episode.
Seems we've sung love's last song, dear John.
I loved it. I thought it was really good. Very, very tight, written, dialogue-focused comedy with lots of gags.
I quite liked I like episodes that leave you with a bit of a I wonder what happened next at the end, where you sort of you can see the story still continuing. And I know that I do say that I like a story that's tied up in a neat bow at the end, but there was no mild peril. They probably went off to the club, and that's a different tale. So I think it also helps with the continuity of the story as well, that it keeps it going. So like next episode, you know that's what has happened. They've all been off to a nightclub together.
Yeah,
and it sort of pushes the story on.
Unlike a lot of sitcoms, such as The Good Life and Fawlty Towers, it's not all self-contained in the episode. It's building the relationship between these people and building a shared history. And also, I think what the second episode does really well is just explores the peripheral characters a bit more. You learn more about Kate, you learn more about Kirk, and you learn more about Ralph. Yes, yeah. A bit more familiar with who they are and what their bag is, so to speak.
In 2 episodes, we've got these rounded characters that we know enough about to give a monkeys about them. I think at this stage now, only 2 episodes in, we've only known them for like an hour, and they are already we know enough to be invested in them as characters, I think.
Yeah, and I tell you what as well, she probably doesn't get any attention really, but I love the Mrs Arnott character. I love bizarre kind of one-note characters.
Quite subtle.
Father Ted's one of my favourites, and they have just these not fully fleshed out priests who come into that show who just have one foible. And Mrs Arnott's like this. She just sits there at the back and then pipes up with something really out there, doesn't she? Every episode.
Yeah.
That she's a great comic, not a great character, but a great comic device.
She is, yeah. And I think the story would be lesser with her not being there, despite the fact that she doesn't really do a great deal.
Yeah, I love the fact she wears that hat every week as well. Louise was trying to get her to take it off at one point in this. Yeah. She never ever does. Talking to Louise, she was my MVP. What about you?
My MVP this week, I think I'm going to go John this week.
John again, despite the fact that he said that mean thing to Kate.
Yeah, because I think the learning moment of having lied at the end, the white lie that he told in order to get out of going to the nightclub with Kirk, for me was character development and realisation that, you can't just do things like that, and hopefully then that will set him on a different path where he's more sort of true to himself as a person.
Yeah, I think off and on he is. Yeah. He still does bullshit in future episodes. I mean, yeah, John is just the normal one, and and Ralph Bates does a great job of it.
He does.
But I couldn't give it in this week after that cruel remark to Kate.
Okay.
And we didn't see an apology either. You would have thought would have been within character for him to come over and say,
Yeah,
I'm really
perhaps.
sorry about that, Kate.
Why Louise then?
Well, she's ghoulish.
She's very sex pesty.
She's awful, really, but I just thought she had some great lines, and her
She did.
delivery of the lines. Her style of acting is different than the others in this. I mean, she's deliberately like hammy in her delivery, isn't she?
Yes.
And it's almost like more traditional sitcom acting performance, I think. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do. More sort of, like you said, like a theatrical feel to her. It's more of an acted act rather than the natural.
Yeah.
The natural sort of acting of the other characters, yeah.
And I think that's needed, and she does a great job of it. I think she's an excellent actress in this. And
yeah, she is.
I haven't seen her in anything else, actually.
I have.
Have you?
She's in Doctors.
She has been in lots. I mean, I've looked her up on IMDb.
She plays one of the doctor's mums who's got dementia.
And presumably she isn't hamming it up in that then.
No, she's not. No. But she's recognisable as Louise from Dear John. Yeah, still.
Is she an actual doctor in it?
No, she's the mum. She plays the mum of one of the doctors.
Oh, I see.
That's really it. She's just a character's mum.
I was going to say, if she's a doctor, it gives her opportunity to look into people's sexual problems.
Sexual problems, yeah. Yeah.
I didn't really find any bric-a-brac, but I did notice the Vicar and Tarts party poster on the wall, which is probably...
That really made me laugh. In fact, that line made me laugh when Louise said that you'd have to write it into your diary very lightly in pencil and keep a rubber handy for the Tarts and Vicars party. That made me laugh. I have a bric-a-brac.
Yep.
It was the communal wall telephone in the hallway in this...
Oh, yeah, of course.
I remember them from the 80s where you had to put your 10p in when you heard someone speak, and you drop your 10p in and then you could talk, and you got like a few minutes.
Till your pips.
And then you got the pips at the end. Yeah, pips are going. Bye.
And there were all the books underneath with all the phone numbers in.
Yeah.
Big
God,
thick
yeah,
books.
phone books.
Okay, let's have a little trip over to Fashion Corner if you're ready, Al.
Off we go.
Whatever happened to those clothes we wore? It seems we never wear those clothes no more. Fashion Corner.
This week saw John wear something not too dissimilar to last week. There's a bit of a theme, like The Good Life, where, you know, John's got his uniform for being a bit of a sad sack. And it's a French mustard corduroy jacket, which is quite striking, actually. And I think it's something that, despite the fact that it's not really on vogue today, I can imagine that it'd pop up from time to time. Someone would be wearing that today, and it wouldn't look too out of place, I don't think. And he's got the whole shirt and tie, busy man uniform on. Steve, who was a very minor character in this episode, is the guy that walks through the
Steve, old pal.
the lobby area. Steve, old pal,
Yep.
Watcher, yeah, him. He had on like a punks and skinheads bomber jacket. I think it's called the MA1. I've never seen it referred to that before, but apparently it's like an American military jacket.
Oh, okay.
It's like an olive green colour with a bright orange lining, man-made materials, so like don't sit near open fire with it on, or else it'll end up stuck to you. And it's got like a knitted collar, waistband and cuffs, but very recognisable of sort of like the 70s and early 80s perhaps. And that was like for him. It was supposed. I think it was supposed to be like a recognisable thing for that character. You could see who he was and what he was about, I think. Mrs Lamenski, who not really sort of, you know, the focal point of Fashion Corner on any week, I don't think she will be. However, she was in a plaid blue and red checked dress. It was like an overall button-down dress. You can sort of see her I think she dresses just for hanging around the flat, like cleaning and working at home.
Yeah.
Kind of clothing.
But representative of the 80s.
I think so. Yeah.
I can imagine my nan dressed like that. Yeah.
She reminds me of Ethel from EastEnders a little bit.
And Andrew Sachs' ill-fated sitcom, of course.
Yes.
Dead Earnest.
Yes, indeed. Yes, she does remind me of Ethel in the way that she looks and the way that she sort of just like pops up everywhere and the clothes that she's got on as well.
Yeah, she had a little willy with her, then that would top it off.
She did have a little willy with her. Louise in this episode has a red skirt suit with a black and white checked blouse with a pussy bow tie, which is what I found out is the actual name.
Pussy bow tie?
A pussy bow tie, yeah. The real name for the pussy bow tie is Lavalier, named after a mistress of Louis XIV, apparently, and popular in 19th century France. So it's like a large knot and then drooping ends, made popular in the 1960s in the UK, in like the UK and the Western sort of world, by Coco Chanel and Yves Saint Laurent. But in the 80s,
yeah,
part of the political image of Margaret Thatcher.
Well, she is a bit Thatcher-esque, isn't she, in some of her speech patterns? Yeah.
Yeah, so I find it sort of instantly recognisable in like Margaret Thatcher. If it was like royal blue Thatcher,
yeah, true. Yeah,
you can sort of see where that's coming from, and I think you're right. I think it's a hint towards the stature that Louise has.
I might have to rescind her MVP actually.
Yeah, MVP.
Mind you,
slash,
we let Margot win it enough, didn't we?
We did. She was riddled with it. John also has what looks like a club tie on. I couldn't get close enough to see what it was, but you know, like when someone's like a member of like a fishing club or a golf club,
yeah,
or a tennis club, and they have like a tie,
yeah,
from the club. It looked like his tie had some like little tiny emblem on it.
1-to-1.
It was a 1-to-1 club tie. Some kind of I don't know. Some part of his previous life,
right?
Tie. It looked like
some membership he's had to give up because he's paying maintenance.
Absolutely, no, he's skint. And then just quickly at the end, we've got Ralph with his motorcycle paraphernalia, so he's like dressed head to toe in olive green. Mrs Arnott, who dressed in a biscuit-coloured hat and Macintosh. Everything matched. And I don't know whether this is like a theme for her, that her hats always match the coats that she's got on.
Well, we'll have to look out for that going forward then.
Yeah. Do you know where she would look not out of place?
Hold on.
She absolutely would do. She would fit into the audience of the Royal Command performance of
I'm sure you said this last week.
The Good Life. I think we did. I think this is going to be... but she does. She's got that face. She's got the face for it as well. And finally, Kate. She had a green waistcoat, a blue open-necked checked shirt and jeans. And, I have got one more, sorry, don't want to forget about Kirk, which is the same every week. Black shirt, black leather trousers, and a massive gold cross necklace. I don't think he had his white jacket on this week.
No, he does change it up a bit, I think, Kirk. I think he does have different Tony Manero outfits, I think, that are all of a theme.
Yeah.
Yes, there's always lots of interesting fashions to look at in this. You're right, if we'd done porridge...
No, just another jumpsuit.
Yeah, mind you, Ralph, there's not much variety in Ralph, is there? There's
not, but I quite like it. I like the fact that the clothes in this are recognisable enough from my childhood. I can see that somebody that I know wore that, and it feels more familiar, I think.
So, do you know what next week's episode is called? Episode 3?
Well, the episode seems to have two descriptions, two names. Ralph's Curse and also Death. So...
Oh, God, we should have called this one Death, given what we talked about.
Yeah, so it's not the happiest of content next time.
Right, okay.
It's not a person that dies, is it? It's an animal.
Yeah, it's his best friend, though, so it's very sad for Ralph.
It is.
Yeah.
So if you're liking what we're doing, follow us at SADDO Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, where we post rare photos and videos on Dear John, Fawlty Towers, The Good Life and more. We have a Facebook page that you can find by searching SADDO Podcast, and we also have a growing Facebook group that you can join and contribute to discussion or memes, rarities, anything that you might find yourself. Subscribe to our newsletter by visiting our website, saddo.club, where you can also get more information about us, read the blogs, share us a coffee, and listen to episodes if you don't do podcast apps. You can also watch the original episodes that we discuss on our episode notes pages, or take our super tricky Good Life and Faulty Towers quizzes. Get in touch, email us at saddopodcast@gmail.com, subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Yeah, on our social media this week, although it won't be this week by the time you listen to this, so you'll have to scroll back somewhat. There's been some, I've been doing a few little quiz type things where I've posted some sitcom actors to see in their youth, and you have to see if you recognise them for the roles that they would later play.
Ooh, I like them.
Have you seen that? I'll let you see it after if you want, and you can see how you get on.
Yeah, I might. Can I do it blind? I want to do it without knowing the answers.
Well, you do it live, but nobody will be able to see the photo, will they? So it might just be best if we do it after we finish recording. Otherwise, it's just you going, ooh, I don't know. And everyone else is thinking, no, do I, for fuck's sake?
No, that's not entertaining at all.
No. So instead, we'll see you next week for Series 1, Episode 3. See you next week, y'all.
See you next time.
You will enjoy it.
Dear John, by the time you read these lines, I'll be gone. Life goes on, right or wrong. Now it's all been said and done, dear John. Seems we've sung